so I am Stephanie Ram with Arizona at Work. We are here to help assist with questions today on mostly on unemployment, but on some other programming as well for those of you that are thinking about the volunteer furlough program. So we've got folks coming in a few minutes. We will have Jim Sorensen join us. He is with unemployment insurance from the state, and he has questions that some of you have already submitted, and so he'll be prepared to answer those. And then once he gets done with his presentation, we'll have some time for some Q&A after that. And so as he's going along, feel free to use the chat box to submit any additional questions that that you think of while he's talking. So while we're waiting for him, we have Sue Hilgart that I'm going to turn the time over to for a few minutes. She oversees several programs that offer additional assistance to people who are looking at maybe some opportunities for retraining, career exploration, that kind of thing. And so I'm going to turn some time over to her. And then in about 6 minutes, Jim will join us to specifically talk about unemployment insurance.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us via Zoom and for putting up with all of our technology issues, because we've suddenly become a technology world, and there's a lot of us that aren't quite as techie as we thought we were, is what we're finding out. But I realize that the things that are happening right now are pretty uncertain in the world, and then to add to that some uncertainty in your employment makes this a difficult time to get together. We just want you to know that we do understand the uncertainty of what you're going through, and hope that just a little bit of the information that we bring today, you'll realize that there are a lot of resources that are available for you now and down the road. The program that I work with Arizona at Work is for dislocated workers, people that have lost their job due to the economy, a plant closure, or reasons beyond their immediate control. And some of the things that we have available, there's flyers that were put into an employee portal about our program, but then if you're here in the building, they're also on the table in the rooms. Some of the things that we can specifically help you with are job search, updating your resume, maybe create a brand new resume that is customized to what you want to do now, that emphasizes what you've been doing, and building on transferable skills. We can help with interview skills, practice interviews, career exploration. Maybe you had been doing the same kind of job for many, many years and don't realize that you have some really transferable skills. And so the opportunity to look at what's an emerging occupation, or an opportunity to just see what else is out there. And as you're looking at the potential of a new career, we have programs that can help you gain work experience through either placing you on a work site to learn new job skills, or using an on-the-job training reimbursement for a new employer, where we would reimburse them for a portion of your wages during your training period. And that's nice. I like that one because it puts money right back into the community to that employer when they utilize that program. We also have the opportunity to help people pay for training if they need, maybe they just need a certificate or to update a licensure. We can help with that cost. We can also help with the cost of tuition and other expenses for retraining programs. So those are kind of the in a nutshell services that the dislocated worker program can help you with. We have staff that are located throughout Navajo County, Apache County, and Gila County. And the information on the handout that I provided for local here in the Sholo area is Mandy Black. And over in Apache County, depending on where you come from or where you live, we have a staff that resides and works in Apache County. Her name is Agnes Harris. And I put their contact information on the flyers that are available in your employee portal, and then also on the flyer on the tables today. I also had a second handout that went into more detail about the different things that are available in the dislocated worker program. And so that's a good reference tool for you. And on the back side of that is the name and contact information for all of our staff in the northeastern part of Arizona at Work. So, you know, that's our program in a nutshell. I'm not seeing any questions that are coming up in the chat. I'm wondering if they're, other than if I could whistle for you for a while or something until Jim Sorensen comes on. I'm not really sure where we can go here. Will you be discussing the CARES Act in this presentation? So to the extent that it applies to the Arizona unemployment benefits, yes, that should be information that Jim can share with you. And then do we qualify for unemployment benefits if we were on Social Security? That depends on the type of Social Security benefit, if it's a retiree benefit versus a disability benefit. All those kinds of things are, every person's situation is unique, and it has to do with what your remaining income is compared to your lost wages. And it's not something that I can necessarily speak to, but that's a good question for Jim. If your department doesn't reopen, will Summit still pay your benefits, and for how long? And so then that is a question that's specific for Summit, and we will note that and pass that along to the HR department. And Sandy says, I am here. Oh, please unmute me. I am Jim Sorensen. My window says Sandy. Yay, thank you for coming, Jim.
Okay, let me find Sandy. There he is.
Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, hi.
That's why I was waving. I'm
Yes.
sorry. It says Sandy because I realized my wife was using Zoom on my computer. And so, yeah, I'm not Sandy, but so I apologize. I was just trying to get your attention. So do you want me to get started with the questions?
Yes.
Yeah, Jim, if you'd start with those questions we submitted, and then we've got some people that'll be submitting via the chat box, so I'll keep track of those as you go. And then we've got some folks in person that'll be submitting via pen and paper. And so when you get done with the presentation you've got prepared, then I'll throw the additional questions out to you.
Okay, and I'm willing to stick around as long as you guys need me. I'm hoping the leaf blowers across the street have stopped, so I apologize if we hear leaf blowers, but let me get going. So before I answer questions, if it's okay, Stephanie, I wanted to just give a quick overview of unemployment.
Yes, that's great.
Just so everybody kind of understands. So just a quick 3 to 5 minute brief overview of unemployment, and then how this whole CARES Act fits into the unemployment, and then deal with the questions, and I'll answer as many questions as I can. So Unemployment insurance, is most of you may or may not know, started in the 1930s, the Great Depression, the Social Security Act. And so what makes unemployment very complicated is it's a federal program, but states have been allowed to create their own specific eligibility rules, criteria for over 80 years. So 85 years. So this makes unemployment very unique in Arizona, different than other states. But one of the things I want everybody to understand, because I noticed question number 9, how is unemployment calculated? So first of all, one of the things that people misunderstand is unemployment is not taxes that we, the workers, pay into in Arizona. It's 100% paid by the employers who pay into the system. So that's why there's some individuals who have countable wages and don't have countable wages. The other thing with unemployment that I want everyone to understand is something called the base period. So unlike Social Security or other benefits, we don't look at your entire work history. We're only looking at the first 4 of the last 5 completed quarters when you open a claim. And right now that is all 4 quarters in 2019. So just to kind of give everyone just an overview, it's a little bit different, and it's always, what have you done for me lately, kind of with wages. So that's just something to kind of set you up with unemployment. And the way to answer question number 9 in my little intro here, the way benefits are calculated in Arizona is based on those wages in the 4 quarters of 2019. You have to have a high quarter of at least $4,680. It doesn't sound much, but if somebody's working part-time, they have to earn at least $4,680 in one of those quarters and half that amount in the other 3 to qualify for the very lowest unemployment. If they don't have that, then they are not monetarily eligible, but there is another program that the CARES Act has initiated that could help those people. So I wanted just to sort of give that as an intro. Most of you probably do monetarily qualify. If you've been working full-time, most likely you qualify for the $240 a week. And then we'll talk about what the $600 is above that. So that's just a brief intro. In Arizona. The other part of question 9 is, how will I know if I'm eligible for the max? The max in Arizona is one of the lowest in the country, and I'm just talking about regular benefits. We pay $240 a week. We're number 49 out of 50, I think. And when you hit $6,000 in the high quarter, which is not much, that will qualify you for the max in Arizona. So that is question 9. That's the intro. So I'm going to go through these questions and try to fill in the blanks the best I can. So number 10, when can employees file for unemployment if and when approved? So the question for, the answer to that for everybody is basically you can file the first full week, the week after you get laid off, even the day after your last day of work. And your last day of work is when you physically are working for your company, not when you got your last paycheck. So if your last day of work is Friday, then the following Monday, you can certainly apply. If your last day of work is in the middle of the week and you have earned quite a bit of money that week, I would suggest to wait to the following full week. You can go ahead and apply, but then the system is going to ask you for the wages that you've earned in that particular week. And keep in mind the week in unemployment goes from Sunday to Saturday. So if you're laid off on Wednesday or furloughed on Wednesday, you have to report the wages you made Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or even Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And most likely that'll go over the $240 amount. So if you, again, you can file for unemployment the day after you're let go or however they word it. But I would suggest the next full week that you have no wages. Are employees who agreed to voluntarily furlough eligible for UI? Right now, in the situation, when you do an initial application, we ask you for unemployment, we ask you right up front, are you applying because of COVID? So anybody right now who's volunteering for furlough or leaving the job or hours being reduced because of COVID is going to be eligible for UI, at least on the separation issue. There are other issues. So we want to be really clear, and the CARES Act, which some of you may be familiar with, which stands for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, basically has said that if anybody's affected with their job because of the CARES Act, whether it's themselves being quarantined or a family member or even childcare because the children are out of school, they are going to be eligible for unemployment. Whereas in the past, we would look at the specific reasons, and there may be reasons why we would disqualify you for leaving your job when you had an option to stay. But at this point, 99.9% of individuals who leave their job because of COVID-19 will be eligible for unemployment. When you are filing the application and it asks you the reason for separation, please, please, please put layoff. You don't need to put discharge. You don't need to worry about another separation for reason for separation. The reason is that does not create an issue. Even if they're not calling it a layoff, that is the understanding with this COVID-19. And so that will prevent an issue being set on your claim and delaying benefits. Question 2, are part-time employees eligible for UI? So that goes back to the how much money did they earn in the base period. So if those part-time employees have earned at least $4,680 in one of those quarters and half that in the other 3, they would be eligible for regular unemployment benefits, the $240 a week, or it ranges from $187 to $240 a week. And I don't want to throw a whole bunch of acronyms out at everybody, but people who are eligible for regular unemployment benefits right now are also eligible for the $600 on top of whatever the regular benefit is. So that's one category of individuals. If, however, there's a part-time employee that didn't make that $4,680 threshold and is what we call monetarily ineligible, then that individual still may be eligible for another program under the CARES Act called the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA, excuse the acronyms. So that is an individual who hasn't made enough, or who's a 1099 or a gig worker or self-employed. These individuals, we're actually building a system in Arizona to help those individuals who normally wouldn't qualify in our regular benefits to receive potentially that $600 a week plus whatever they may qualify under PUA. So if a part-time employee applies for unemployment and we come back with what we call a wage statement that shows those 4 quarters of earnings, and we say you haven't made enough, don't worry, there is another part of the CARES Act that individual may be eligible for. Number 3, how will employees know how much they can expect to receive per week? Again, anybody who's qualified for regular benefits, you will get a wage statement. So it will tell you you're going to get anywhere from $187 to $240 of regular benefits. And then you tack the $600 on top of that. So if you're eligible for $200 a week, you potentially will be getting $800 a week. But let me stop right here and say this. These particular $600 a week payments that supplement regular unemployment insurance are only good in this date range. Effective 3/29, so the first week ending 4/4, all the way through 7/25. That is the deadline for these $600, what I call supplement payments to regular unemployment. So if, and I hope nobody goes that long, but if individuals continue to go longer than that, the $600 payment would drop off, and then it would go down to $240 or to $180 or $187 or $200. So I did want to say that about the $600 payment. What about PRN on-call employees who historically were guaranteed a certain number of shifts who have been furloughed? Are they eligible for UI benefits? Absolutely. So just because, whatever your status is on your job, we're going to look at those earnings. So if you're on-call or PRN, we're going to take a look at the earnings in 2019. And if you do get, one thing I do want to say, if you do get called into a shift, while you're on unemployment, work the shift, please report the wages. And you do that every week on the weekly benefit claim. It does ask, did you work or earn any money? And it's important to report it when you earn the money, not when you're paid. So if you work on a Saturday, but you don't get paid to the next week, when you do your weekly claim on Sunday for the week ending Saturday, please report the wages that you would have made on Saturday. Now with reporting wages, if you earn anything over $240, you will not be eligible for a payment that week. And that includes the extra $600. So if you earn $300 that week or more, anything over $240, you will simply not get any payment. If you earn less than that, if you just earn $200, then you will be eligible for partial regular unemployment and the $600 payment. Let's see, number 5, Summit will continue to pay employees portion of health insurance premium. Will this affect their benefit amount? No. It's only going to be your earnings. So the fact that your employer is paying your benefit amount does not constitute earnings. And by the way, let me pause here and say that also includes the stimulus check money that we're all getting from the IRS. Those are not earnings. Earnings are active income, not passive income. So if you happen to be somebody that owns apartments and you're a landlord, that is passive income or an inheritance. So it has to be money that you actually go out and earn, that you count as wages. That would include the Social Security. So again, report active income, not passive income. Number 6, if employees use a portion of their PTO during the furlough period, how does this affect UI eligibility or weekly benefit amount? So this gets pretty tricky because we do ask you a question about, we call it vacation holiday severance. So vacation and or PTO will set an issue on your claim. So the way it works is this: if your last day of work is Friday and you decide to take 40 hours of PTO, you have to answer yes to that vacation holiday severance question on the application. And then we have to do an adjudication to basically say, okay, you took 1 week, so your first week of unemployment is going to be ineligible. And then you would be eligible for week 2 forward. The problem with that now, I can tell you at this point, we have 250,000 individuals in Arizona filing weekly claims. In a normal period, we had about 15,000. So we have about an enormous amount of issues that a small group of people have to clear. So I would highly encourage you, if you can, to not, and again, I'm not trying to direct you what to do, but if you're creating an issue for yourself with vacation, I don't know how long it's going to take us to clear that. So I would recommend that you answer no to that and not take your PTO if you can. Again, that's up to you, so that we don't create an issue in the system and then you're in that backlog of trying to get worked. That's just purely from a program. I'm not saying that we won't work the issue. We absolutely will. We normally have 21 days to work the issue, and then we back pay you what we owe you. But at this point, with the tremendous numbers, I would opt to try to avoid creating an issue, even having to do with PTO. And question number 7 is also similar. How will PTO impact unemployment benefits? Again, the way we look at PTO is when you're filing the initial claim, we ask you, are you taking vacation holiday severance? Yes, we have to do the issue. No, we won't do the issue. As long as you're getting unemployment, PTO, if you don't take that excess, won't affect it. If you decide to use PTO somewhere in the middle of your claim, you could count that as earnings, but again, need to be very, very careful, because someone could go back and review the claim and wonder why PTO was taken when you initially had said at the beginning of the claim that you weren't going to take vacation. So I would be very, very careful with PTO. If you can at all avoid using it during the claim, it'll probably be easier for you and also easier for the unemployment department. Can part-time benefited staff take advantage of voluntary furlough and qualify for unemployment benefits? That is probably more of an internal question, but I would say, basically after talking to your HR department, part-time individuals could potentially be qualified if they've made enough money in the base period for the regular unemployment. If they haven't and they end up losing their hours, again, they could potentially qualify for that PUA benefit, pandemic unemployment assistance, for those who don't qualify for the regular unemployment. I already took care of number 9 and 10, Stephanie. So I think I answered the initial questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of help me navigate through what else we have, and we'll just go through them one at a time.
Okay, great. So we've had a lot of other questions come in. And help navigate those. Okay, so the first one I've got here, does the spouse's income count at all toward any of the wage calculations?
No, this is not a government program. It's only the individual filing unemployment. So no, it is not a household income. It is only the income that the claimant either makes that goes towards the benefit and or reporting wages during the weekly claim.
Okay, perfect. Do you know what the current time frame is that new applications are taking to be accepted and checks taking to go out? The time frame.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So if you don't create any issues, okay, so if you create an issue for yourself, that could cause a delay in your benefits being paid. A couple things, in fact, let me sidelight here for a second. I want to bring up to everybody. There are questions about, are you able to work and are you available to work? Don't take that literally. Right now, because of COVID, a lot of people aren't able to work, but we don't want you to answer, no, I'm not able to work. That creates an issue. Yes, you would be if COVID didn't exist. Yes, you are available if COVID didn't exist. So please don't create that issue in the initial application, or the weekly claims also ask you that question. Are you able and available? The answer is yes. I could go back to work today if I wasn't being furloughed or if COVID wasn't happening. So that's extremely important. But back to your question. So when somebody files a claim this week, if there's no issues, and the first weekly claim, and it's very important that after you do the initial claim that you file a weekly claim every Sunday. If you miss Sunday, you could do it the later on that week. But that is what initiates your first payment. Right now, the CARES Act waived the waiting week. There used to be the first week that you filed, you would not get any benefits. That waiting week has been waived. And so potentially somebody could get their payment a week after they file. But here's the problem. Everybody's issued a Bank of America debit card. It's taking Bank of America at least 10 business days to send out those debit cards. There is a direct deposit option, but that is done through the website. It takes time. And again, keeping in mind the scope that we're dealing with in Arizona, all that takes time. So if there are no issues on the claim, there could very well be a week or two of benefits that go on that debit card. Nobody can touch it. When it comes to you in a plain white envelope in the mail, you activate it. You can also call B of A. They have a toll-free number that I can give Stephanie to give out to you guys. But do give them time to send you the debit card. If there is an issue on your claim, then it's going to take us probably at least 21 days, probably longer, to resolve that issue. So please don't create issues. That includes the reason of separation, layoff, you are able and available for work. And depending on the PTO thing, if you decide to use the PTO, that's fine. But that is, we have to calculate how many hours of PTO and how that affects the beginning of your claim. So I guess my message is try not to create issues. You'll get paid quickly, but you also have to wait for the debit card. Okay, Stephanie.
Okay, so a couple of the things that you mentioned, I want to go to some of the questions that were asked specific to that. So there's 2 or 3 questions about PTO. And so one of them is, do we have to cash out PTO or extended illness benefits? And well, there's more than one about accrued PTO. So I want to tell you first the question that the answer that HR is giving right
Please.
now. Employees cannot cash out PTO. And I want to make sure that I'm answering this correctly. If they're going down to reduced hours, they can't even make up hours by more than 50%. Is that correct with PTO? So that's not an option. So now I think that answers the question that you're not required to, but I don't even know if that's if there's another answer that is UI related specifically that you would answer, how you would answer that, Jim.
Not really. So what you do internally until your last day of work is between you and your employer. What you decide to carry over after that last day of work then becomes unemployment's business. So everything up until that, whatever that last day is, furlough, however you define it, that's between you and your employer. So if you use up your PTO or work that out with your employer, however, if it then becomes what we call continued pay. So if PTO becomes continued pay, you get your last paycheck up to your last day of work, but now you're getting 40 hours of continued pay then that is something that we have to work out because it now affects the first week or two of the claim. I don't know if that helps, but that's sort of the dividing line between internal and when unemployment really has to step in and resolve that issue.
Okay, so then the couple of other questions that are similar here about the time that it's going to take to get paid. One of them is, so if you're only on furlough for 1 month and it takes longer than that for your benefits to start, will you still get that money for the time you were off, even if you're back at work?
So, I'm sorry, say that again.
So if you're furloughed for a month, and so by the time, and then it takes longer than that for the benefits for you.
Yes,
money.
Absolutely. So, you know, let me say something about that. So if an issue is created, and let's just say there's 40 hours of PTO and you do 4 weeks of unemployment. And so after we do our adjudication, you have 3 weeks of benefits coming to you, and it takes us 8 weeks to get to that. You will be back paid those 3 weeks. It'll be dumped on the debit card or direct deposit. So yes, I hope it doesn't take that long, but just for purposes of an example, yes, you will get back paid any weeks. The important thing after you open your claim is that you file those weekly claims, report any earnings, and then even if it takes us a long time to sort it out, that money will be paid to you when the issue is resolved. And we don't normally send you a letter in the mail saying, with the PTO, what we do is send you a letter, and it's a little confusing. You are not eligible for unemployment, but it gives you a date range of 1 week. So people look at that and say, oh, I'm not eligible at all. Well, no, it's just the 1 week. You filed 4 weeks. So there's 3 weeks of benefits that actually land on your card. And I've actually had people in the past didn't even realize, they thought they were denied and they had 4 weeks of benefits. And then their 1099 comes and says, you made $1,200 in unemployment. They're like, no, I didn't. And we look it up and like, it's on the debit card that you threw away. Go get it, but you got to claim it on your taxes. So know that whatever you file for and whatever, read those letters clearly. If we're only disqualifying you for a week, you're going to get the other weeks of benefits back paid.
And so then I think that you kind of answered this, but I want to ask it so that you clarify. So if it takes 3 weeks to get the unemployment payment, will they get a lump sum at the time that it comes through of the 3 weeks?
Yes. So it'll come through as a lump sum. Exactly. And it's your choice to have taxes taken out or not, by the way, too. These are all taxable. And, you know, make the decision, you know, if you needed to pay bills. My wife, who's an RN, was having issues 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when she was in the home health field. And we decided we needed every dollar to pay bills right now, and we'll deal with the tax implications later. So that is a choice at the beginning of the claim. You can change it during the middle, but you know, you can make that choice up front as well.
Okay, so I think, so that one got answered. That one got answered. Okay. Are they able to apply for unemployment ahead of time? So if the voluntary furlough begins, so 5/2 May 2nd, that's a Saturday. So the furlough time period actually begins on Sunday, 5/3. Can they start the application process before then?
No, you have to wait until the day after, or you could, I think it'll allow you the day of, but honestly, it really doesn't matter. The week that you apply for unemployment, whether you do it on a Sunday or a Friday, will count the same. So wait until after the hard line date and then open your claim.
Okay, so I think there's some confusion on reporting those weekly earnings if somebody does earn some money during the unemployment process. So the question that's being asked, if you could clarify,
Sure.
do you report your weekly earnings for a week when your employer has not provided that information to you?
Okay, so the weekly claim is like the calendar, Sunday through Saturday. And so when you file your weekly claim, and let's just for purposes, gosh, my dates are all messed up. So this last Saturday was what, the 18th. So if you file your weekly claim on Sunday, April 19th, what we are asking you is, did you work or earn any money between 4/12 and 4/18? So you'll know whether your employer is telling you or not. I worked 15 hours. Multiply that by your hourly rate. That's what you're reporting on that week, regardless of You know, so if the employer gives you no hours, you were thinking you were going to work, but it didn't happen, you have nothing to report that week. So to only go specifically, so when you're doing your weekly claim, you're looking back on the previous week ending that Saturday, the 18th, and what, if any, money's active earnings did you do between 4/12 and 4/18? Does that make, so hopefully that clarifies it for you guys. And it's the gross amount that you make. So you don't need to worry about taking taxes out. It's $20 times, you know, 20 hours, that would be $400.
Okay, can you edit your application once it's been submitted?
You have to be careful. This is a very old system, internet system that we have. So no, what you can do, if you're halfway through your application and you don't finish it, it will time out on you. You can start over again. Sorry, but I mean, there's just, it's an older system. If you do complete it and it gives you a confirmation number and you realize you made a mistake, a couple things can happen. You know, the call center is, we're staffing up on that, but I think somebody was saying 70 calls per second is what we were getting. Very hard to get through to the call center. So your best bet would be see what paperwork comes in the mail. For instance, if you made a mistake and you said I was fired and not laid off due to COVID, when that paperwork comes in, give us the reasons for your discharge. Just put on there, lost job due to COVID or furloughed due to COVID. Send that in, and we will be able to clear that issue without having to do a whole lot of what we call adjudication work. So and if you can get through to the call center and tell them that, they should be able to hopefully clear those mistakes. So just be very careful, be very mindful when you're doing the application. Ask yourself, you know, usually when you say yes and create an issue, you know, is this really the case, or am I really available for work and this is COVID? No. So, you know, just try to be very careful. And again, if you feel like you have made a mistake, you can start over before you finish the application.
Is there a greater delay if you elect direct deposit rather than using the Bank of America card?
Yes, I don't know what the delay is, but I can just tell you that, again, I think the numbers were 350,000 individuals who had applied for unemployment, and then we added another 76. So we're getting close to 500,000 individuals who've applied for unemployment in the last month, and we were not staffed or built for that. And it is a manual process to add direct deposit. So if I were in anyone's shoes, I would just take the B of A debit card, cash out the money and put it in my account. I'm not telling you not to do direct deposit. I don't really know what the backlog is. I do know that there's a backlog. So you certainly have that option. In the meantime, your payments are going to go on the debit card till they switch over. And it's not we have an older process, and what ends up happening inevitably between the bank card payments and debit card payments is that there's a week or two where you may be issued a paper check while it switches from the B of A debit card to direct deposit. So even anybody who wants at the very start to do direct deposit, don't throw away that card. Probably the first week or two, perhaps longer, of benefits are going to go on the card, and then switch to direct deposit. If you're only going to be furloughed for a short period of time, I wouldn't honestly bother with direct deposit simply because of the backlog.
Are the $600 payments being paid at this time, or are they being delayed?
No, so they are being paid at this time. We got them going last week, and again, they're effective week ending 4/4. This doesn't apply to you guys, but so everybody is getting that on top of their regular benefits. We've had a few glitches. If you owe child support, there's been an issue with taking out the right amount of child support, but they're working through that now. I expect that to continue to pay out. If you are one of the few people that we have glitches with, we're working really, really hard to get out the money, but the majority have been paid basically the $840 a week if they qualify for the regular max of unemployment benefits. And that will again continue through week ending 7/25.
Are you eligible for unemployment and or PUA if you have a reduction in hours? For example, you normally work a 40-hour work week and now you're reduced down to 10 to 20 hours per week.
So yes, you could be, but this gets into the reporting earnings. So if you're reduced down to 10 hours a week and you make $20 an hour as an example, you can go ahead and open your claim. If you're eligible for the max of regular benefits right now, let's put the $600 aside. 240 is the max. So you work 10 hours that week, and Sunday you do your weekly claim and say, I made $200. We are going to give you the difference, $40 plus the 600. Actually, we'll give you 70 because with the first 30 we waive. So in that example, you could get $670. But let's say the next week the same person works 20 hours. So now they have to report $400. So that week you've had excessive earnings, so you will not get anything. Then the following week, if you drop down to 10 hours, then the same scenario would happen. So yes, they could be in some weeks and no in others, depending on that $240 threshold of earnings that you obviously need to report.
Okay, so we have several questions regarding that work history. And so we've got, what if you didn't work the last 4 quarters? What if you only worked 3 quarters in 2019? Yeah, so
that's base period questions. Again, the base period right now is 4 quarters in 2019. So you don't have to work all 4 quarters. As long as you've worked 2 quarters of the 4 and you have $4,680 maximum, or excuse me, the $4,680 of earnings in 1 quarter, that's the minimum threshold to get 187 a week. And then half that, which would be what, $2,300 in the 2nd quarter. That would give you into regular benefits. If you haven't worked at all in those 4 quarters, but you've worked now, you will apply, or you don't meet that minimum threshold I just mentioned, you would get a wage statement from us saying you haven't made enough money for regular unemployment, because that's the way our system is set up. That's okay, because you've applied and now you're on our radar for PUA. And let me say again, the state of Arizona is literally building the system to help these individuals that have never, that we've never in our history had to deal with. And so we're working with a vendor to build the system. So the fact that you're in there and you're what we call monetarily ineligible means that when the system is built, I'm hoping in May, we will send you instructions of how to apply, how to do the weekly claims, how to show your earnings. So that should be coming. If you haven't worked at all, and again, I don't know let me say this with PUA, we're still working out the policies to who is eligible and who isn't for the lower wage earners or the self-employed. So I don't want to promise everybody that if you don't qualify for unemployment, you will for PUA. There are going to be some guidelines that I'm not aware of yet. So all I can tell you is that just apply and then wait for instructions from us to see if by chance you do qualify for the PUA benefit.
okay, so then there's some questions from a couple people who have moved into Arizona within the last couple of years. And so one worked all of 2019 in New Mexico before moving to Arizona, worked 1st quarter here. The other one moved from California in June of 2019. And so they're asking, does it matter which state they apply in?
Yes, it does. So it's not where you live now, but it's where you worked in the base period. So the first example, the New Mexico example, they will have to apply in New Mexico. They'll just have to do New Mexico unemployment. However, the COVID is available over there and their weekly benefit amount is higher. The second example, the California, if you have half wages in California and the half in Arizona, you can do what we call a combined wage claim. So they can choose to do an Arizona claim and then we pull California wages over to basically, so when you do the initial application, did you work in another state? Yes, pick California. And then we will combine that. Or they could go to California, which I wouldn't recommend doing, and apply there and grab the wages and move over from Arizona. But they have their choice. Again, the California regular benefit pays a lot higher, so does New Mexico. However, with the $600, I don't know if that's as critical of a need. And I can tell you that every state is struggling. Every state is dealing with backlogs. Arizona is not alone in that. Arizona was one of the first 2 or 3 states to actually pay out the $600. So we're working really, really hard to try to work through everything. But, so that's up to the individual who has half wages in Arizona and half wages in another state or several states, but the individual that worked all of 2019 in another state must apply for that unemployment in that New Mexico.
On the initial application questions, do they put layoff even though it's a furlough?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, it's going to ask everybody, is your job been affected by COVID? When you say yes, do not worry about your reason for separation. And again, putting discharged or quit. Yes, technically you volunteered for a furlough, so you think, well, that's a quit, but that sets an issue in our system. You know, you are going through this because of COVID. So that is the reason. And so picking layoff is completely legitimate to do to avoid creating an issue. Because if we sent you the paperwork for quit and you said, well, I volunteered because of COVID, we're going to clear that issue. So you're creating more work for us that we don't need. And again, it is perfectly acceptable to, you know, to say layoff as well as being able and available for work, even though technically if you overthink it, you're thinking, well, I'm not able to work because of COVID. I'm at home quarantined, or I even have the COVID virus. I can't work. If you're affected, you're eligible. If you have childcare, you're eligible. These are all things that the unemployment system never did before. So a lot of the questions would seem to be, you know, you would seem to be lying about them, but you're not, because it has to do with COVID. As long as it's related to COVID, then you can avoid creating those issues, if that makes sense.
Can you qualify for unemployment if you are on Social Security?
Yes, as long as you are able and available to work full time. Absolutely. So Social Security doesn't have any effect. And let me say something too about pension, regular pension. So some of you folks may have retired from a previous employer and have a pension. There is a pension question. Again, I don't want you to create an issue that we have to sort through that doesn't apply. So I will give you all this tip, this insider tip. If it asks you about a pension, and if you question carefully, in fact, I think I have it here. It's somewhere, I thought. It says, we are only asking if you received a pension from your last employer or an employer in the base period. So if you retired from an employer in 2018 or previous and have a pension, we're not counting that. It would only be an employer in the base period. So if you retired from an employer in 2019 and then went to work for Summit, that is a countable pension because it does affect your benefit. But if you retired in 2018 or further in the past, 10, 20 years ago, and you're getting a pension, you can say no to that question and you're perfectly fine. You can even say, Jim said so in your, I'm just kidding. But so again, avoiding that issue will help save you time and us more work to get through.
All right, and then we've got a couple people who've asked about their normal wage. So if their normal wage is less than they might earn on unemployment, given that $600, can they actually earn more in UI than they do on their normal average wage?
Boy, that's a tricky question. So say it again. Let me just wrap my brain around that
So
one.
I'll give you the one that actually named. So if your normal wage is $400 a week, can you receive the additional $600 of unemployment?
No. So going back to my example, you have to be qualified for regular benefits, and regular benefits in Arizona is $240. So if your weekly earnings are even $250, then that $600 just goes away. You have to be under that threshold of $240.
If their normal wage is $400 before they go on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So 400, let's do a little bit of calculation. 400 a week, 1,600 times 3, 32.48. So yes, that'd be $4,800 if you were consistently earning that. And remember I said the threshold was $4,680. So in that case, you'd probably be eligible, I'm just guessing, a claim for $190 a week. But let's just say someone is only earning $350 a week, and that puts them at $4,500. Oh my gosh, you're not eligible for regular unemployment, and you get a wage statement from us telling you that. You have wages, but you don't have enough to qualify for a claim. Then you go into the PUA group, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Group. You'll have to wait for us to build the system. Whereas if you're eligible for a regular claim right now, we're already paying out the benefits. We will back pay that PUA system, by the way. I think they're going to go all the way back to February 2nd. It's just that we're not ready to pay out. In fact, no state is paying that out right now. They're all scrambling to design a system to pay individuals affected by COVID, because it's not a small group, it's quite a large group. So you're better off obviously if you qualify for monetarily, but if you don't, all hope is not lost. And even if you don't see the benefit for a month or two, just like I said before, we will back pay everything and put it on that debit card and hopefully clearly let you know that it's there.
Okay. So one more regarding Social Security. So can a part-time employee who takes the furlough qualify if they're on Social Security?
Again, Social Security doesn't really affect benefits. What we really look at is, are you willing and able to accept full-time work in unemployment? If you're not, and you're strictly a part-time employee, in the normal times, technically unemployment, we would say, well, no, you're required to look for full-time work. However, in the COVID crisis, right now, we are not even asking you to do a work search. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. So not only is the waiting week waived, but the work search is waived. So when you do the weekly claim, we used to ask you to put 4 contacts on 4 different days of the week of where you're applying for work. That's grayed out. You'll just go on to the next question. So all that's paid individual, depending on the wages that they've earned. If wages in 2019 are below that threshold, then they could fall into the PUA category. And yes, they could eligible for benefits right now because of COVID.
So anybody working minimum 40 hours a week, making a minimum wage.
Yes. Okay. So I've got HR here, and she just made the comment that anyone that's working full-time making minimum wage will qualify for the state unemployment.
Right. That's actually the threshold. They did 390 times the minimum wage is the 4,680 figure I've been throwing out. So correct. She is.
And so now they're asking just for some kind of clarification. If you were making 400 a week and now you're furloughed and you're on the unemployment and you're determined eligible for the PUA, the check would be the $600 CARES Act approved amount, not you were making $400, therefore your check is $400.
Correct. It's a straight $600 payment. And I just want to correct you. PUA, again, is for those who don't meet the threshold. That's okay. It's actually called FPUC, Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. I don't like to say the acronym because it's a little dicey. So it really, once we determine you eligible for unemployment, we don't look at, what was your normal weekly wage? It's let's say you're qualified for 200 a week plus the 600. So it's an $800 payment as long as that $600 lasts until you get called back to work. And if you, again, you need to report earnings if that does happen. But if you're on complete furlough, then it's just going to be reporting every week. And you will get the $600. The $600 is not tiered. It's one amount tacked on to whatever you qualify between 187 and 240.
So it is feasible that some people will be earning more during that furlough.
Yeah, actually the CARES Act, precisely that. Some people could be earning more than they would. But again, it's temporary. It's only through July 25th. It's designed to keep the economy going. And I think everybody would prefer to be working than sitting home. But I tell everybody this, unemployment insurance is exactly that, insurance. So people have come to me before because I've worked a long time and said, oh, I've never filed for unemployment insurance. I said, really? So when you get in a car accident, do you use that insurance? Well, yeah. I said, well, this is job accident insurance. Everyone in the country has had a job accident because of COVID. So this is the insurance payout for that. And I don't think anyone should feel any different than that.
One other question. So you mentioned cashing out the debit card and putting it in your account. How would you do that to pay bills?
Oh, sorry. What I did when my wife was on unemployment is I simply went to the ATM, took out the 240 and put it in my account. So that was just my process. So, or waited till it built up a certain amount and literally took the cash out and put it in my account. It just worked for me. And again, avoiding direct deposit right now, I'm not saying you have to, but again, the backlog is pretty significant. So yeah, just grabbing cash and put it in another bank. Just be careful. I was always scared. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have $400 in my pocket. Looking around all scared.
Going from one bank to the other.
Who carries cash these days, you know? Who carries cash?
I don't have any other questions that have come through. HR did ask me to announce that the summit furlough specific related questions will be published via the intranet today. I will tell you that we have also, it looks like I may have another question coming in. This is another Connie question. Okay, so, so HR has left. I think someone was wanting to announce how people will be contacted if they've been furloughed. So those questions will go up on the intranet. This also has been recorded. So this will go up on the intranet. So this can be reviewed later for anyone who wants to go back and make sure that these questions have been answered. Jim, thank you so much for being willing to share your expertise with us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and Stephanie, I'll continue to make myself available to you if there's any follow-up questions that people didn't get to, or HR has some questions, particularly with shared work. Okay. So I'll make myself available to help you guys out. I wish everybody the best and that we could all make it through and get back to normal work soon. That's really my hope. Right. So thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone.